Teachers, what's the dumbest way a student tried to act smarter than you? There was this kid in a few of my classes who always tried to outdo the teacher. The catch? He was always on his laptop during class, and how he would get his answers was just straight ChatGPT. He loved announcing himself, clearing his throat, waiting for quiet that no one offered, then hitting us with the famous two words, actually. His voice did that confident podcast cadence, the kind that thinks commas are for cowards and nuance is optional. Actually. The reason parabolas are relevant is because in complex systems, scarcity drives emergent behavior, he said, quoting something literally not written for humans. I stared at my algebra notes, then at his screen, which glowed with a fresh AI manifesto about economics. Great, I said. Now tell me why the vertex of this one is at -3.2. He blinked, smiled, scrolled, and read a sentence about bottlenecks. The class giggled. He kept going. Every topic had a brand new TED Talk he did not understand. Completing the square, supply chain resilience, slope intercept, innovation ecosystems. I would ask a math question, he would paste a Wikipedia opera, and then sit back in triumph like he had solved cold fusion with vibes. The grin did not help. It was this tiny, smug crescent that said, I have outsmarted a building. I made a new rule on the spot. No laptops during instruction. The room groaned, but mostly at him, not me. He slid the computer away like a magician palming a card, and I watched his hands like I was monitoring a raccoon near a picnic. He raised his hand again. Actually, this is stifling my independent inquiry. Actually, we are locating a vertex. He crossed his arms and exhaled like a disappointed grandfather. I moved on. Class worked while he sulked. Pencils whispered. Peace returned. Then came the quiz. 10 questions. All numbers. All show your work. No talking required. I passed them out and watched eyes drop to paper like flowers tilting to sun. He waited. He always waited. He had the patience of a cat at a closed door. When I turned to help another student with factoring, I heard the quiet hinge of a laptop and the click of an overconfident trackpad. I did not even look. I just walked. He minimized so fast he almost deleted time. Phone and laptop on my desk, I said, and he tried a smile that should come with a refund. Why? He asked. Are you afraid of knowledge? Only when it writes for you, I said, disappointed. He surrendered the devices with a theatrical sigh and got back to the paper, now tragically alone with his own brain. He scribbled quickly, sweating like the quiz was a sauna. He finished first, marched up, and placed it down like a subpoena. I graded during the last 2 minutes because I am petty and efficient in equal measure. The first answer was an essay about the history of quadratic equations starting in ancient Mesopotamia. The second answer complimented me for asking a nuanced question, and then suggested 3 frameworks to think about lines. The third answer encouraged cross-functional collaboration. The fourth answer, to the point about factoring, simply said, there is no single right answer, and then produced a bullet list. Now I realized what he was doing. He was completely yapping up fake answers to get through it. He didn't even care at all. I looked up. He was leaning back, fingers laced behind his head, smiling at the ceiling like he had negotiated world peace. Class, I said, I would like to share a model response. He sat up taller. I read his answer to question 5, which asked for the y-intercept. It began, great question, thanks for asking, and ended with a paragraph about Roman aqueduct logistics. The room erupted. He puffed up. That is context, he said. That is not even close to the assignment, I said. I read question 7, where he wrote, as an AI, I cannot perform specific calculations without explicit data. The class howled, because the explicit data was, in fact, printed in bold right below it. He raised a hand and tried to object on philosophical grounds. Mathematics is about exploring possibilities. Exploring is not copying, I said, thinking he was just trolling. He pointed at me like a lawyer in a procedural drama no one asked for. You cannot prove I cheated today, he said, suddenly nervous. I turned his paper around and tapped the line where he had left in a hyperlink. It said, click to learn more. He cheated so bad. He literally wrote a website link on paper. There was silence so perfect you could hear the dust thinking. He swallowed, then went for a famous last stand. That link is metaphorical. I wrote a 0 so gently it was almost a lullaby. He tried to rally. He said something about academic freedom. He said something about the future of learning. He said something about being a visionary. The bell rang like a judge's gavel, and everyone stood at once. He reached for his laptop with the careful dignity of a fallen king. I handed it back to him, smiled, and said, try showing your work tomorrow.